I'm very happy and excited to introduce our next speaker, Amity Otawer, a Bitcoin protocol engineer who will be sharing her experiences on how to use Bitcoin to redefine societal ideas of wealth. Please feel free to take it away, Amity.
Thank you so much for that introduction. It's a pleasure to be here at TiEcon. Thank you for having me. And I'm excited to talk to you all about Bitcoin. So let's dive in. A little bit about my background is I grew up in the Bay Area and I went to Carnegie Mellon University. And then I came back and started working as a software engineer in some different startups in San Francisco. And the journey that led me towards being curious, investigating, working on Bitcoin, all started with a pretty fundamental question of what is wealth? After I graduated from college and I was working at these different startups, some of them were in e-commerce. I worked at one that was a platform for bartering, and it really made me wonder, what does it mean to be wealthy? It's easy to answer this question in a purely monetary standpoint, right? Make more money, have savings, etc. But it's obvious that that doesn't fully answer the question of what wealth is, because wealth goes beyond that. It involves having fitness, it involves having friends and family, and it's a very deep question. So I was investigating it, and that led me to looking at the trust models that we use to organize as a society today. Historically, we've only seen two main trust models. One is direct. I get to know you, you get to know me, we have trust, and we can do business, we can have debt, we can make promises and believe that they will be paid off over time. And the second one is what's allowed our society to scale to the billions of people that we are today, which is hierarchical. And that's saying that I trust you or I trust the system, and that system will identify who to trust. So if you think about it, this is everything from how we navigate money to how we might book something with Airbnb to stay in for a weekend, or look at reviews on Amazon to purchase something. This is really what's fueled organizations and society. These two trust models have gotten us very, very far. But in Bitcoin, something that's very interesting is this idea that you don't actually need to trust in order to do business or to make deals, because by being an entity on the system, you can verify for yourself the accuracy of what's going on. So this is the idea of the talk today, and we'll dive in a little bit deeper to these claims that I'm making. So to start with, Bitcoin is money. So we're narrowing the scope of trust into just money, into making financial transactions with other people. So let's talk a little about what is money, because that's also pretty complex. There are three main areas that are used to define what the function of money is. One is a unit of account. So this is saying I make $500 or this shirt costs $10. It's a way to account that translates via different kinds of materials or services or goods. Another is a medium of exchange. If we don't have money, we could always barter. I could provide you a haircut and you could give me a t-shirt. But if we don't have what the other party wants, then we want something in between, which is money. So that's a medium of exchange. And the third is a store of value. If I'm making money today, I might not want to immediately spend it, but I might want to save that for the future when I have other goals, whether it's groceries or sending my kids to school. So money can help store value. Fundamentally, what these are all coming down to is trust. You're putting trust that you will be able to purchase something another time, or that you will be able to get the goods or services that you want. And so let's look at different types of currencies and see exactly what are you trusting. With gold, we're trusting that there's always going to be scarcity and demand. Gold is inherently scarce based on how much is produced naturally. And we're trusting that there will always be a demand for it because historically in human society, people have wanted gold for much longer than I've been alive. So it creates a feeling of security that people will want gold beyond my lifetime, so I can rely on it. Another predominant currency in our world are dollar bills or digital currency, which is, I've heard a statistic that digital currency is over 90% of our money at this point in time. And here what we're putting trust in are the government or the banks that are giving this out. When I bank with Wells Fargo, I log onto a website and I see a number. And if I get paid from my job, I see that number go up. I'm trusting that this isn't just going to suddenly disappear, or this will be able to translate to the things that I need either now or in the future. I'm trusting in the system of government and banks, which loops back to that hierarchical trust model. And for the most part, this works pretty well, but we are trusting a central entity, and that means that they can do a lot with that. So here are some headlines from around the world of what certain entities have decided to do. In India, we saw the deprecation of particular kind of rupees. In South America, in Africa, we're seeing hyperinflation or bills that are printed to $100 billion. In South America, we're seeing hyperinflation as well in Venezuela and Argentina. But I'm not just trying to point the finger to other countries. Where I reside in America, we also see the government making interesting choices. I heard a statistic that in the year 2020, 20% of all pre-existing currency was printed by the government. So, a lot of people are concerned that this could be leading to hyperinflation. Maybe it's going to be okay, but regardless, we're putting our trust in these central entities that they know what they're doing, and we're taking a risk. So in Bitcoin, it's an entirely different model. We're introducing a third trust model, and that's saying that we have nodes, which are essentially just computers running software all over the world, and they are coming to a consensus, which means that they're agreeing on who has how much money. So the fundamental technology they're using to do this is the blockchain. And the way it works is each one of those nodes, so if you're participating in the system or running the software, you can check for yourself. You have that history. You don't have to trust Wells Fargo to maintain that history. You have that history yourself. And you're able to validate that any transaction, any time that, Alice wants to send Bob money, you can say, yeah, I can check it out. And Alice actually has that money to send. So everybody who's participating in the system is going to validate themselves, which is introducing a very different trust model than the one where we directly get to know each other or the one where we trust in a centralized entity. This is saying that I can just verify. So you can come to an agreement about what happened without having to trust one another. So this is really, really radical. And when I first got exposed to this idea, it really captured my curiosity and my imagination of what could this mean for society? What could this mean for human organizations if we have a different model of interacting and doing business, handling money? Bitcoin is a very specific use of the blockchain because it's only for money, which I think makes a lot of sense because we're still trying to figure out exactly how this technology works and what are the bounds. But the possibilities for what this could entail are really enormous. So this brings me back to that initial question of what is wealth? And when we narrow the scope down to money, Bitcoin is kind of changing the proposition. One of the key attributes of Bitcoin is that it's censorship resistant. And I want to talk about this because this is extremely fundamental. When we have a hierarchical trust model, we're saying that trust is exclusive, right? So in America, in order to open a bank account, an example is that you need a proof of residence. I had a friend who came over to America from South Africa for an internship, and she wasn't able to get a permanent address, because she was staying she was subletting for the summer. And so she had a really hard time getting paid by the internship because she couldn't open a bank account. Although that's an edge case, or that's kind of one of the complexities, the idea of banking is that we create a set of credentials and then we try to impose that, like if people need to meet these credentials. Bitcoin is really flipping this definition on its head, because it's saying that everybody can participate. No entity should be able to prevent another entity from participating, whether that's somebody in charge like the government or whether that's an attacker. It's censorship resistant. If you want to, you should be able to participate. And this is a primitive of the Bitcoin network. So that is a fundamental concept that is changing, which could have huge implications for wealth distribution, because it could reduce the gap between the privileges that the wealthy have versus what is accessible to the people who are lower on that spectrum. So that ties into how things could be distributed differently. If you have a protocol that is managing a lot of this risk, I don't think it ever removes the necessity for humans to interact with humans and have companies and take on more risk. But as the protocol becomes fatter, the risk of the company can become smaller. And so it doesn't have to be as disproportionate of a distribution of wealth amongst the people who are providing each other services and goods. And something that the decentralized nature enables is having a fixed supply. Ever since Bitcoin was introduced, the supply curve has been fully identified, and there will only be 21 million Bitcoin ever, unless every single person running Bitcoin changes their mind. So if you buy into the system, the rules aren't going to change without you agreeing, which is something very fundamentally different than the systems we currently have. And for the first time in an age of digital abundance, we're seeing how we can create scarcity, which means how we can store wealth in something like digital gold. So to conclude, Bitcoin is digital. It doesn't serve any particular geographic nation more so than another, because it's purely digital. It's the first truly digital currency. So that allows it to be global, and it's inclusive because of this censorship resistant quality. And that's what makes it money. And in my opinion, it has the potential to be a better money than any we've seen so far. So this is why I find Bitcoin incredibly interesting and powerful for what it can mean for our world and what it could mean for wealth distribution globally. Thank you so much for coming out, and thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.